Nedarim Daf Pei Ches contains one Mishnah, begins immediately following the previous Mishnah. The first sugya up until the Mishnah discusses, is partial knowledge considered to be the same as full knowledge? If you know something part way, do we give you the halachos of someone who knows it fully? The Gemara will have a contradiction in the opinions of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. We'll have two conflicting machloks in between them, and the Gemara will resolve them. Then we'll get to the next Mishnah, which discusses how you can give a gift to a wife, keeping it away from the husband. How can you keep it in her possession and not entering his possession? So let's begin. So we've seen in the last Mishnah the concept of a husband who wants to be Mayfair, but he did not have full knowledge of the neder. He did not fully understand the neder that had happened. So this is what we call partial knowledge. So the question is in order to be Mayfair, he has to really know about it, because the Torah says B'yom Shemo, it has to be that he heard it and he understood what was going on. So he has partial knowledge. So does that count as full knowledge to be able to be Mayfair? So Rabbi Meir says no, he can't be Mayfair. The Chachamim says yes, he can. So you see, the opinion of Rabbi Meir is that partial knowledge counts the same as partial knowledge does not count as full knowledge. The opinion of the Chachamim, which includes Rabbi Yehuda, is that partial knowledge does count as full knowledge. So the Gemara asks if that contradicts a discussion between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda in the sugya of someone who kills someone accidentally, whether or not he needs to go to Golus. Now, in order for him to go to Golus, he has to have some measure of understanding of what he did, the fact that he killed a man, and therefore he can be considered to be at least somewhat negligent. If he's completely honest, he wouldn't go to Golus. So the case there that they're discussing is a blind man. Is a blind man considered to be responsible for what he did, that he killed someone accidentally, and go to Golus or not? So the blind man can be aware that someone's there, but he doesn't know exactly where he is or who he is. So this is again a case of partial knowledge, just like our discussion about Nedarim. Now, the opinions there are the opposite. Here, Rabbi Yehuda says that he does not go to Golus because the partial knowledge does not count as full knowledge, and he doesn't qualify as someone who knew what was there. Rabbi Meir disagrees. Rabbi Meir says, no, a blind man who kills someone accidentally can also go to Golus. You see, he holds here partial knowledge counts as full knowledge. So you have a contradict. Their opinions are flipped as to whether partial knowledge counts the same as full knowledge or not. The Gemara resolves the contradiction by saying it's not about whole knowledge, partial knowledge, full knowledge. It's about a question of how you darshan the psukim. In our Mishnah about Nedarim, perhaps it's a question of full knowledge, of partial knowledge counting as full knowledge or not. However, the Gemara about the Golus is a question of the drasha. So over there what happens is that the Torah says that it has to be below ru'os, without seeing. So there's two ways to understand the phrase below ru'os. You could say that it's a drasha that's to include a blind man, because it says he didn't see, so it's referring to someone who does not see, even someone who can't see. Or you could say, no, this is specifically to exclude a blind man, because when it says he didn't see, it must be referring to someone who could have seen, but he didn't. So that drasha could go either way. So which way are we going to make the drasha? So that depends how you learn the pasuk before, which sets up what we would have thought otherwise. So the Gemara explains as follows. You have a phrase previously where it says V'ashayava oreu b'yar. So Rabbi Yehuda says that means that includes anybody. It's meant to be a general term, he who enters the forest. And it refers to anyone who can enter a forest. That includes a blind person who can enter a forest. Since a blind person is included by this pasuk, the later pasuk where it says below Ru'os must be coming to exclude him by saying it has to be someone who could have otherwise seen, but he didn't see this one time. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda's conclusion, based on the psukim, is that we're excluding the blind man. Now, Rabbi Meir learns differently. Rabbi Meir says, just prior to this, it says bivli das, where it was done without knowledge. That has to be referring to someone who could have had full and complete knowledge. A blind man cannot have full and complete knowledge. Therefore, the previous phrase would have excluded a blind man. Therefore, when it says below Ru'os, it must be including the blind man. And therefore, it's about how you darshan the psukim. It's not about full knowledge or partial knowledge or any of that. Now we begin the next Mishnah, which discusses somebody who wants to give something to a woman without it belonging to her husband. Generally, we say that any gift that a woman receives becomes part of Nechsei Malug, and it belongs to her, but her husband gets the right to use the paris of that until he dies, in which case she inherits it in return, or she dies, in which case he inherits it from her. Now, so if somebody makes an Isser Hana on his son-in-law, and then he wants to give a gift to his daughter, So he can't give the gift in a way which is going to benefit the son-in-law, because the son-in-law, he made an Isser Hana there. So he's got to find a way to give it to the daughter in a way that it's not going to go to the husband. So what should he do? So the Mishnah says he can give it to her. And he says that this is given to you as a gift on the condition that your husband doesn't have any portion of it. And then the Mishnah adds, and what you eat, what you take and put in your mouth, food that you take and put in your mouth. Now the implication is that this is a condition, and the gift only becomes hers when she actually eats it. That way it's kept away from the husband completely, because the husband can never get any use from it. He doesn't own it, and he can't get any use out of it because she's going to be eating it. If she does find a way to give it to him, she's giving it to him, not the father-in-law, and therefore there's not violating the Isser Hana. So now the Gemara discusses, do you really have to have this clause? Do you really have to have him adding that it only belongs to you, the father telling the daughter, it only belongs to you when you actually take it and put it in your mouth? Rav says yes, he has to. If he says, I'm giving to you on the condition it doesn't go to your husband, but you can do whatever you want with it, then the husband gets it anyway, because whatever the woman owns, the husband owns automatically. He owns the pairs of it automatically. And when the woman's kona it, her hand is like her husband's hand, and the husband is kona chelik in it. And therefore, it doesn't matter that he said your husband shouldn't have a portion in it, unless he says this, that it's food for you in your mouth. Now, Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel doesn't hold Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila, and therefore she can be kona for herself without being kona it for her husband. He doesn't have to say that it's got to be food in your mouth. He could say to her, do whatever you want with it. The Gemara now says that Rabbi Zera asked the kasha. The kasha is, in the opinion of Rav, who holds that because you say Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila, the woman's husband is as her, the woman's hand is as her husband's hand, she can't therefore be kona anything separate from him. Anything she's kona goes to him automatically. So Gemara says this must be the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is the one who holds Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila. Yet we have a Mishnah in Maseches Eruvin, which has no name, and therefore it's Rabbi Meir, which clearly shows that even though Rabbi Meir holds Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila, you could have the separate kinyan. You could have the woman being zocha something separately from her husband. How do you see that? So the Mishnah there is talking about making a shituf mavois, making similar to an Erev Chatzeres, where you take some food and you are mizake it to other people. You make a kinyan that it goes to others. So you have a man who's trying to be mizake this to others. Now in order to be mizake to others, he has to give it to someone else who's not the same as himself. He can't pass it from his left hand to his right hand. And that person who's receiving it could say that he's doing it on behalf of everyone else who needs to receive it. And the Mishnah there clearly says he can give it to his wife. It lists that he could use his Eved, his Shivcha, as long as they're Ivrim. He could use his son and his daughter as long as they're Gedolim. And he could use his wife. She can be a Konet for him. Obviously, his wife's hand could still be Konet for others, could still have a kinyan separate from him, even though Rabbi Meir holds Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila. So how could Rav here say that Rabbi Meir will hold Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila, and it has to be, you have to use the trick that the Mishnah describes? So Gemara answers that being mezake, shituf mavois is different. Shituf mavois, even though Yad Isha Ki'ad Baila, and you can't normally be zaka for others, it can't be mezake separate from her husband, shituf mavois you could, because it's a schus. It's something that they need, and they want this kinyan to be able to have, so they could be a member of the shituf, and therefore it's different, it's not a kasha. Yomar asks, but there's a contradictory brisa, which quotes Rabbi Meir's opinion again. It doesn't have a name, so Stam is Rabbi Meir. And here it says that a man can not be mizakeh through his wife to others. It lists the people that he could be mizakeh, people that he can't be mizakeh. The lists are all the same, except that the wife is moved from the people that he can't be mizakeh to from the people that he could be mizakeh to the people he cannot be mizakeh. So you have a contradiction. So what's pshat? So Gemara says it must be that the wife being mizakeh, the Erev Chatzeres for others, depends on the situation. There are some situations in which she can and some in which she cannot. What's that? It depends if she has a chatzar that she owns independently of the husband that opens into this mavoi, into this alley, and that she needs to have the kinyan work for her. In a situation where she has one separate, so she needs to get it separate from her husband, she represents that chatzar, and therefore the kinyan works for her. Since it could work for her, it can work for others as well. In the case where she doesn't have a chatzar, so she doesn't have any reason that this shituf mavais, what's being distributed is a barrel of wine, ownership in the barrel of wine. Since if she doesn't have one, she doesn't have a chatzar for it to work on, then just like it can't work for her, she can't be mezakah.